Welcome back. So excited to be here. I'm Margaret Master, your heartfelt CFO, here with today's topic around visibility. And such an interesting morning I've had. We had a very big meeting internally around a bunch of our clients, and the theme was also around visibility. And as we were like that last 15 minutes of the call, what ended up happening was that the client themselves didn't even know what they had to actually give us the right scope. And what we just discovered on today's call, there was another S Corp. So hence 3 S Corps, 3 LLCs. And what happened is that how that S Corp now plays into the picture is a whole different avenue on what's going to happen for their future. So really just jumping into today's topic is what changes when visibility catches up with growth. So with this client, interestingly enough, is that what was happening into cash flow and needing to be on top of accounting and bookkeeping and CFO services and advisory services and all of the in between, accounts receivable, and all of these things, not doing it in a reactive sense is where it's kind of like, what's really happening? And they needed to make bigger steps and bigger jumps to help make this decision. Now, when we started to onboard with this client, they were feeling very emotional and very displaced because they felt like that they were in this place of making intentional decisions or making it, as I call, the routine because it's tax purposes. It wasn't necessarily aligned with where they wanted to go. It was more so they were doing it for reasons that was disconnected from their growth. So most operators assume the pressure comes from the growth itself, but often the pressure comes from unsupported growth. And this unsupported growth of what was actually happening in all of this is where the advisory was led to now having too many S Corps of repetitive needs and repetitive tax structures that was really keeping this client really, really busy and into requirements that didn't support them. And I want to begin to talk about this, the assessment where I left here on the left corner of each of the slides today is talking about how I've taken these growth and assessments that I've worked with my clients over the past 10 years and built this into the questionnaire around this assessment so that you can get this alignment onto your business faster, quicker, and knowing where you need to prioritize. And even successful portfolios sometimes begin feeling that things are heavy, they're financially reactive, harder to coordinate, and more stressful to manage. I know I've been there, and then lately now myself, I'm more so in there too again. And you know, I actually decided to do something that I haven't done in a long time, which was like redesign a workspace of my actual tasks, of one by one by one by one. And when I started to do that, I was realizing why my head was feeling so heavy versus being more in a project management system, more into like that the notes kept somewhere. And what was happening is that I lost track of where to update the systems, which is where it's not that business is failing, it's just that the complexity outpaces the infrastructure that it's built on. So this is usually where visibility gaps between forming quietly underneath growth. And this is why we created this assessment so that the pressure points, the infrastructure weaknesses, and the hidden visibility gaps are now out there that you could take care of them. Because think about it, the tax requirements at the end of the year, and you're finding out things then. Now, all year you really are is the chance to take care of them. So by the time the tax return is done, it's already way too late. And in this assessment, what I have done is that all of these pressure points that I see over and over in the real estate field, whether you're starting out, multi-entity, a broker, all of these different things where we've put in there around the tax questions and the growth so that you can discover this quicker and faster. And over time, leadership loses full confidence in what's happening underneath the business. And the visibility gaps they're not dramatic, but they build quietly: fragmented systems, delayed reporting, inconsistent tracking, unclear liquidity, and reactive financial coordination. This is where I could come in, where the reactive financial coordination is kind of like, what's the situation now? It should be simple, Margot. This is happening, that is happening, but it's all the backpedal of steps that we're ignoring over the course of time and space. So let's reframe this. Let's think of this a different way. The issue is not growth. The issue is growth without operational visibility. And that operational visibility is what we're talking about today in this assessment, so that you can prioritize quicker over it, and that the financials become something streamlined and it's building with you. Because eventually revenue alone is not the stability, and it becomes kind of like, where do you go? So often in this stage where operators begin needing deeper strategic support is where we design to help you for a clarity session. And I invite you into this clarity session so that you get the visibility, you get the pressure points, and you get the strategic next steps. Because what I see is that people come with these 6 entities because someone said, and the growth is falling apart. And it's expected that the tax structure will catch up, and it can't because of a lot of different reasons of planning being not done, and so many different things continuing to be stacked. And if we don't catch up, it's just to continue the same behavior over and over. So I want to encourage you to take the first step and do the assessment and book the clarity session so that we can get a real deal visibility on where you are. Now, this client that we were talking with, internally in the morning. So now they have 3 entities of just an S Corp and 3 LLCs, right? And the 3 LLCs, they flow through to your personal return, but they're still LLCs. You still need QuickBooks files. The S Corps still need QuickBooks files. It's all a bunch of financial management. So imagine doing that alone, where you really don't have a system, and understanding how that's going to affect you. What the dang is a K1? What the dang is a 1099? Is it the same? Do they work together? Are you getting a W-2? Are you moving money from one to the next? I have conversation with partners all the time is that they're taking the money to avoid paying taxes to reinvest the growth, and they're skipping some of the steps. It doesn't skip the step paying taxes. What happens is that you're just moving the money in order to invest into the next step without thinking about that last 25, 30%. So what's the shift? The real estate wealth operating system. So excited to talk about this. It's a framework designed to help you around operational visibility, proactive financial operations, scalable financial systems, and strategic financial oversight. Once you get the visibility, you could be proactive around finances, you can scale, and then be strategic to grow, so that if you have 6, 10, 20 entities, however many you want, however many S Corps, partnerships, it's not a big deal, because once we have the visibility, the proactiveness, the solidness of the foundation, everything goes from there. It's literally like a beautiful thing that continues. So visibility, structure, scale. Once you have the structure, it's the strength. Visibility, we're building the foundation, and then scale. So you want to move from reactive to proactive so that you're always ahead of the game. So what's the transformation? Why should you even care? And what does this even mean? So what actually changes is that what actually changes when the visibility improves? We get better decisions, leadership gains stronger financial confidence, and operational coordination becomes smoother. And cash flow becomes easier to evaluate proactively. And you really get to see, instead of taking from Peter to pay Paul, which is really the biggest theme in the real estate field. And this strong infrastructure changes how growth feels internally, because the business becomes easier to lead, to coordinate, to evaluate, and to scale strategically. And with all the partners and the different things that are happening, it becomes really, really easy. Less fights, more money into your pocket, and then the money to reinvest becomes no questions asked. So I invite you once again to take this assessment today. Join me in the clarity session together so that we can work together on these things. And whether you are later into the process in terms of scale and you don't have the visibility, we can create the steps forward. And that's why I want you to take the assessment and really begin there, so that we already know what's happening and we can work on the priorities from there together and make you as much money as possible, pay less taxes, and that your business can grow beyond your wildest dreams. I thank you all for listening. I thank you for taking the test. I cannot wait to see the results. I look forward to seeing you in these sessions together and working together on them. As always, any questions, let me know. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you soon.